You're listening to Opera Box Score.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Wherever you are, however you're listening, it's America's talk radio show about opera. It's Opera Box Score. I'm Weston Williams, joined by Oliver Camacho, Matt Cummings, and Ashley Hardgrave. All right, this week for our annual Christmas special, we're going inside the carol. Taking a break from opera news, the OBS team wants to save you from tears and give your heart away to someone special. Plus, keeping with the theme of magical births, a field report on the Met's Die Frau Ohne Schatten. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Spotify. Click follow on Apple Podcasts, hit the plus sign. Email us your hot takes by writing to mailbag@operaboxscore.com or upload a voice memo using the You Got Something to Say tab on our website, operaboxscore.com. However you contribute, you'll get an OBS beer coaster, an OBS lapel pin, and a #1 OBS fan foam finger just for sharing your own hot take. And without further ado, let's talk some opera.
Chalk Talk on Opera Box Score.
By the time you listen to this episode, we hope your tree is trimmed, your gifts are wrapped, and your cookies are baked, so all that's left to be done is build a great playlist for your holiday gathering. We recommend you just play episodes of Opera Box Score, but if you need some other music suggestions, each of us on the OBS team has something to share with you, starting with our most senior member, Oliver Camacho.
The first two verses of Donald Fraser and Jane McCulloch's This Christmastide, also known as Jesse's Carol. That performance is from 1988 from the Christmas concert at Ely Cathedral with Jesse Norman. The music for that concert mostly comes from the album called Christmastide, which was recorded about 2 years earlier with some of the same forces, namely the American Boy Choir. Both the studio recording and the concert are outstanding. I think it's informative to watch the video to understand a little bit of the ethos of Jessie Norman and her presence, which is so impressive. I didn't know who Jessie Norman was in the 80s. I didn't start studying singing until the 90s and understanding who singers were until probably I got to college. And I'm embarrassed to say that what we did in the 90s was make fun of Jessie Norman when she was actually at the peak of her power. Us stupid college students would make fun of her name, make fun of her appearance, make fun of some of her stage antics. But now I look back at this content and I see what she was doing, and I see how she was playing not to the camera, but she was playing to the people all the way up in the cheap seats and giving people their money's worth. And all the stuff that she does with her jaw and her, the height in her mouth, was to create beautiful tones, impressive tones, and just a wide variety of tones. And you can even hear it in that first verse, just how tender and how much language you get in this. Another thing that's impressive about this carol in particular, or this concert in particular, is that she brought over the American Boy Choir to perform in England. And I just imagine what it'd be like to be 8 years old and to be in a children's choir and to get to have that opportunity. I'm so jealous of any kid who gets to go to choir school. I think if I had gone to choir school, I might be a better musician. I might be a better singer. I might have found my people, my community at a younger age. So here is the verse of this Christmastide that begins to introduce the children's choir. Something that's so remarkable about that verse is how Jessye Norman fits her instrument with them. We know that Jessye Norman can sing loud. We know that she could blow those kids out of the water, but she's really scaling back. And even when she goes for that descant, it's tender and it's beautiful. And, that's definitely her choice to do that, because we know that when it's called for, when we need bombast, when the when the jets are flying overhead and the trumpets are playing, she has no problem being heard over all of those sounds. So let's hear the next two pair of verses. That's definitely a little bit more operatic. So that's full on battle cry. but it's so great and it's risky. And I mean, that's what I want from performance. I want to know that there's danger there. And even if she doesn't sing that high note perfectly in tune, you know, she went for it. And, it was thrilling. And I get thrills when I hear Jessye Norman make noises like that. And that last tone that she sang was just so beautiful, so round, so controlled. It was phrased. And, after letting loose like she does when the trumpets are playing, to be able to bring it back to something that's more beautiful. That's her skill. And that's why we love Jessye Norman. And we'll close with the last verse. And I do encourage you to watch the video of this. It'll be linked on the website so you can see what I was talking about, how the jaw is just really dropped and she's working really hard to make beautiful tone. And she's giving us so much language and she's working so hard. You can see her sweating. But if you close your eyes and listen, it sounds so controlled and so deliberate. And that's what we should all endeavor to do. It's hard work, but it can create something really indelible and beautiful. I hope that you have a wonderful holiday, that you can spend it with your family or your chosen family, and that you get some things that you want, not everything that you want, but some things, just enough to make you content. Merry Christmas.
Green and silver, red and gold, and a story born of old. Peace and love and hope abide this Christmas tide. This Christmas Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. We're dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. All the fields we go, laughing all the way. Bells on bobtail ring, making spirits bright. Oh, what fun it is to sing a sleighing song tonight. Oh, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
So in 2023, I started listening to the audiobook of the memoir of the one and only Barbra Streisand. And I can say that in 2024, I've made it halfway through the 48-hour tome. That is not to say, though, that Babs can only function in such Wagnerian proportions. The chapter that talks about the Christmas album gives less than a minute to it and only talks about the original song that she had written as a gift to her son, who was supposed to be due around Christmas of that year. In case you were wondering what Barbra Streisand, a famously Jewish woman from Brooklyn, was doing recording a holiday album. But you know what I have to say? Thank God she did. Because if she didn't, we would not have the one, the only Jingle Bells? Yes, that's right. It's not Jingle Bells, it's Jingle Bells, because the question mark is part of the title. The song clocks in at under 2 minutes, but wow, what a romp it is. In that short amount of time, we go through a myriad of key signatures, bits, and jazzy riffs on this classic tune. So in that section you just heard, coming out of the brass fanfare, Babs's one-horse open sleigh is already at breakneck speed. So much so that she doesn't even take a single breath for the entire first chorus. And as you probably noticed, that chorus is not the way you're used to hearing it, because it's been rearranged so that almost every syllable is an eighth note. And that gives it this really, off-kilter feeling of careening from phrase to phrase with no sense of, calm or repose whatsoever. But we move in then into the first verse, which, while it's kind of zippy, it finds us on much more familiar ground. This frenetic show 2 bass accompaniment, doesn't let up at all. And this is really when we start to get some of our first Barbra-isms. I mean, that tone is so instantly recognizable, and in its unique blend of both sweetness and power, and the way that she uses nasality kind of, and how much cut she's going to be singing with as like some of her main expressive tools. Obviously, she is not an opera singer. She is a Broadway, jazz, pop, rock, everything singer. She does have, and she uses a lot more chest voice than an opera singer would. But this is an artist with, like, really deep ties to classical music. She talks about that a lot in her book. It's a genre she fell in love with from, like, these records that she would pick up in bargain bins. Like, Rite of Spring, she name drops a couple times, I know. And she also talks later about how much she absolutely just loves Maria Callas. And the classical Barbara album started with a dream of being able to sing Puccini like Maria Callas. So it's really too bad that she wasn't able to be in the Maria movie that Oliver hated. But, you know, we are where we are. Anyway, I digress. This is less of a song for flexing vocal chops than it is a character piece. And you can definitely already hear that in the verse. There's this kind of breathless quality that she takes on. But then she uses the nasally kind of twang of her sound to slice through this sizable orchestra. And I love the moment that she takes when she like crescendos, not just in volume, but in like excitement and like kind of in rowdiness when she does that laughing all the way, hey, and then jams directly into the second stanza of the verse without, again, breaking for a breath. I'm not sure that she really breathes anywhere in this piece, maybe a couple times, but a fraction of the amount of times that you would expect for a song. The way that she kind of throws her voice into the word slaying song is classic Barbara, that kind of like shock. And I'm sure that was something that she improvised in the moment rather than like planning out or strategizing. She kind of seems like, and you can see this when you watch videos of her too. She's kind of a singer who like acts pure on instinct and sort of just like channels her inspiration into choices that she didn't even necessarily know that she was going to make until they happen because they just feel right. Tell me that you associate with being an actor without telling me that you associate with being an actor. And then we go back to the chorus with a little bit more voice this time, but still we're building the story here. It's nothing earth-shaking. Now, let's take a listen to verse 2, because it takes a bit of a turn.
One horse open sleigh a day or two ago. I thought I'd take a ride, and soon Miss Fanny Bright was seated by my side. The horse was lean and lank, misfortune seemed his lot. He got into a drifting bank, and then we got upset. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
Babs talks a lot in her memoir about singing being something that she, like, could do, but it not really being a part of her identity as much as being an actress was. That was really, like, what her dreams and her goals were. And I think you can really hear that here in the way that she uses her voice more to amplify the character of what she's singing than as an exercise in just vocalism for vocalism's sake. Which I think if you were to ask the layperson on the street is more how they would assume Barbra Streisand sings, like, philosophically, but it's really not true. She's always coming down to, like, telling the story, whatever she chooses that story to be, which this is not the version of Jingle Bells that most people would choose to tell, but that's why we love her. And I love the way in this verse that she starts to kind of slide around in her resonance and lets the vowels transform a little bit, like get more and more focused as the word goes on, and like speeds up her flow of breath. And that kind of shows this like sly and saucy side of her and like who is in control. And ultimately that really adds to these, like, all these quick beats and changes in the character of the piece, because this verse kind of goes back and forth between being very legato and sostenuto and then, like, choppy and back to this, like, very rhythmic way. Plus, like, the orchestration only adds to this. A sassy timpani pitch bend? Check. A harp gliss? Check. A bell chime at the to punctuate what she said? We've got them all. And this verse is where you can also start to hear that really Streisand-y diction, where she alternates between this kind of crisp, almost clipped way of talking and an exaggeratedly lyrical one with very long, liquid consonants. And then you can hear that in the way she hits the T at the end of Miss Fanny Bright, so that we all know that she's not doing product placement for Funny Girl, but especially in those liquid L's in the horse was lean and lank, as though she's just like savoring the feeling of watching that horse. Like you can almost hear the character choices behind these pronunciation choices that are so idiosyncratic to do for emphasis. She did that all the time for emphasis, like especially with L's. And then just when you think it couldn't get any more Babs, she gives you this ultimate twist of the knife, with a very silly lyric from the old song about the horse fell into a drifting bank and getting upsot rather than upset. And she gives you this arch Brooklynese upsot to break the fourth wall and like kibbutz through the record player with the audience. Like, I know how ridiculous this is, but I'm in on the joke. And then we get another timpani bend, which takes us back into the chorus. We're in the home stretch now. Again, we're getting a little bit more voice, but it's like a slow build for now. Now, this arrangement is by Jack Gold and Marty Paich, but you would think that you would have stepped right into a production of West Side Story, or that like Leonard Bernstein was somehow involved, from the amount of mixed meter and complex meter that you're getting. And that gets dialed up to 11 in the coda, where Streisand is really like singing all out, sort of for the first time, whizzing from the chorus. She like, in sort of a way, like, I don't want to say like bears at all, but like she just like absolutely lets any pretense of this being serious slip away with this campy extended drop off and gliss on the word one horse open sleigh. That I think that spelling has at least 5 L's in it for the length of that consonant. And now the brass fanfare takes us up a key, and away we go to the verse of Alouette. I'm not sure. Not for long, because Babs is practically free associating here and doing this mix of like scat singing and speaking in tongues as the coda heats up. And you hear her dip into her big girl voice for just a minute as she does the jingle bells, jangle bells bit. And then, you know, it just careens into this show-stopping ending that we did not know that we needed. And before I let you listen to the end of this song, I just want to say that, like, I do think that the general conception of Barbra Streisand is that she's someone who takes herself too seriously. And there's definitely a kernel of truth to that. But what I love about this song is that it shows just how out there and how zany she was willing to be. And bring that like vaudevillian Kum Stanislavski method actor maniacal energy to any project that she was working on. And like always give it 110%, but also like always be willing to look ridiculous for a bit and to be 100% in on the joke. And this song, even though like some people will add it onto their list of worst Christmas songs, they are wrong, because this absolutely works. It is a cabaret masterpiece, and it is the only jingle bells that I ever need to listen to ever again. Take us home, Babs.
Dashing through the fields of white on this happy Christmas night. Off we go through the snow. Bells are ringing, we'll be singing. Jingle bell, jing, jangle. Jingle bell, jing, jangle. Jingle bell, jing, jangle. Jingle bell, jing, jangle. Jingle bell, jangle bell. All the way on a one horse open sleigh.
Yeah, you got something to say? Then yeah, all right, you can say something. This is Listener Mailbag.
Hey, OBS, it's PJ and Donald, both with shadows intact. Donald, your shadow looks good. We're here just after an incredible performance of Die Frau Ohne Schatten here at the Metropolitan Opera.
Ohne Schatten.
Shoot.
Ohne Schatten.
Oh, okay.
Ohne Schatten.
If you do it. Donald, tell us again.
Die Frau Ohne Schatten.
Damn, okay.
Or in Italian, La Donna Senza Ombra, the woman without a shadow.
You're just showing me up now. Already. We haven't even started, Donald, and you already. And we really, really enjoyed it. I had never seen this performance before. I had never seen this opera before. And you know what got me ready Weston Williams, Oliver Camacho, the 3 shows you did, I think back in 2020, I think it was Spring Training you called it, all about this opera, 3 episodes in a row. Donald and I both listened to those in preparation for this performance and this show.
I was very impressed, and I don't impress easily with those 3 programs.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is an opera that I go way back with. My mommy took me to the original first Met performance in 1966 when the new house opened. I was 14 years old. And I have seen every revival of this opera since then. And the original cast was Leonie Rieseneck, Krista Ludwig, James King, Walter Berry, and Carl Burnham conducting. Oh, Irene Dallas was the nurse. And that was about the best cast I've ever seen until this. I won't say this was better, but it was up there. The star for me was Elsa von den Hever as the Empress. And I never thought I would see another Empress who came close to Leonie Rieseneck, but she did.
She sounded like a soprano is supposed to sound. Clarion, loud, bright, brilliant, right?
This is probably the best thing she's done in the house. And it was just beautifully cast all around. Interesting, the last time they did this opera here in 2011, the Dyer's wife was Nina Stemmer. And, she's a Wagnerian soprano of a certain age. So now she sang the nurse, which is usually done by mezzos, but it's a little high for most mezzos. She was wonderful.
So I began my evening upstairs in the family circle with a pair of young lovers next to me. They spent the first act with their hands all over each other. And the second act, they made a little picnic of Toblerone and cookies and rattled their way through the second act, arm in arm. And yet it didn't bother me at all because I was just transfixed from way up high in the house in the family circle. And then Donald, my spotter, grabbed a spot downstairs where he was with all the big kids, all the fancy kids down on the main floor. And I got to see the third act from downstairs. It was really a moment for me. And again, I want to just thank the team at OBS because I felt really prepared. In fact, to be truthful, I'm going to go back and listen to those 3 episodes again, having now seen some of the magic that the team was talking about back in 2020.
I have to mention the rest of the cast. Michael Volo, who's one of my favorite Helden baritones, was the Barak, husband of the wife. She's called Seinweib in German. His wife. He was wonderful. The wife was Lisa Lindstrom, who was announced as being indisposed. And I could hear through the second act her voice starting to cloud up. She just barely got through it at the end. And then, sure enough, they came out at the beginning of the third act and announced Rebecca Nash, who was the understudy, who would complete the opera. Actually, the last time I saw a lecture here, Nina Stemmer was the Electra, and she got sick, and Rebecca Nash took over. Oh, and I must mention Russell Thomas as the Emperor. He was superb. I've not always been the biggest fan of his, and I decided it's probably because I like him better in German opera than in Italian opera. But he was absolutely superb tonight, and this role is a bit for the tenor. It is a very difficult. It lies very high, but it needs a real dramatic tenor. And Richard Strauss, who probably years before, maybe some tenor took away his girlfriend. I don't know, because most of the tenor roles he's written are virtually unsingable, and he did very well tonight. Yannick Nézet-Séguin, the house conductor, was the conductor. Did a beautiful job. I'm not always his biggest fan either, but I thought he did a beautiful job. Yeah. And it's a vast opera. The production, it's a light show. It's incredible.
It's 6 stories, the Metropolitan Opera, the scale of the stage, and they used almost all 6 stories.
The is a 54-foot square, so figure it out.
Yeah. It was amazing. Honorable mention, Giulio Gari, finalist, Jessica Fosselt. Yeah, tell us about that.
She was the voice of the Falcon.
Right. So we never saw her. She was off stage.
No, you just hear her. The performance before this, the broadcast, which was on Saturday, as Kaya Savage, who was our first place winner in 2009, dramatic tenor. Met hasn't used him much in the intervening years. He's done 2 productions here and basically small roles, but it's an absolutely fabulous voice. And He ended up singing The Emperor on Saturday because Russell Thomas was ill, and I heard the broadcast. It was phenomenal. I just hope that Gelb was listening and brings him back for something else.
Are you like his promoter at this point?
Yes, I am. I've always been a big promoter of his.
So it's Donald and PJ here from the Metropolitan Opera. Delighted to report to you from post-show of Die Frau Ohne Schatten. Again?
Die Frau Ohne Schatten.
Damn, I'm never going to do it that well. Thanks, everybody. We'll report back again soon.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
Longtime listeners of Opera Box Score will know that I, Weston Williams, am perhaps the maybe not the worst person to do this kind of episode for, but I'm up there. I do not have an extensive collection of opera singers singing carols or anything like that in the way that my esteemed colleagues do. I can only talk so many times about how good that one Kathleen Battle album is with Leonard Slatkin and the John Adams El Nino Oratorio. But that really is mostly what I listen to every holiday season. My holiday of choice, as you might expect, is Halloween, because all the screeching and plunking is very much my vibe. So when I decided to start looking into what I was even going to do for this episode, I kind of went on a somewhat deeper dive than I usually would. I kind of tried to search out pieces of music that I didn't necessarily listen to, but like would still resonate with me in some exciting way. Now, one way to do this is to isolate a particular carol or song that is Christmassy that I know I like and that I know appeals to the sort of Helden singery singer in the shower that I am. And one thing that I think that always sounds good when opera singers do it is "O Holy Night." There's something so muscular about those long held notes. There's not a lot of, coloratura going on, but you can still like really pack a punch that I really enjoy when I'm listening to Christmas music. So I kind of started searching around and I found a couple people singing that I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And then I came across a recording that I feel like, if my internet search is accurate, is actually a bit of a cult classic that I have been missing out on for a very long time. The singer, of course, was not very unusual for me. I know the work of the Swedish tenor Jussi Björling decently well. I have the duet he sang with Robert Merrill, Au fond du Temple Son from Pearl Fishers, kind of ingrained in my memory forever because it's my mother's favorite piece of music perhaps of all time. And so I know his voice, but I don't listen to a lot of his recordings because he lived from 1911 to 1960, and most of that was in the mono period. And I am a bit of a stereo and beyond purist in a lot of ways, although it's a habit I'm trying to break. And I came across this recording of him singing O Holy Night, or rather, O Helga Natt, because he's singing it in Swedish. And I was kind of blown away. This is a great performance of O Holy Night. And this was actually recorded in 1959, a year before he died, kind of suddenly and tragically of a heart attack. And this is one of the all-time great O Holy Nights. And again, I get the feeling from the internet this is kind of a common knowledge thing, but I am, in my stereo era elitism, I sometimes overlook these sort of transitionary figures from the middle of the century. And wow, I mean, it's everything you could want from Jussi Björling. Let's just hear a little bit of the opening.
För
Jussi Björling is one of those tenors that I really can't get over in terms of just how pretty the instrument is. He has a low register, which sounds great. It's so buttery, even from those very opening measures. It's apparent on, I think, most of his recordings that are recorded with any level of sophistication, how gorgeous his lower range is, and he can carry it up all the way through, really forcing the chest all the way up to the highest heights in a really not necessarily. It doesn't sound the same in every register, but it just flows so smoothly from one register into another that it feels great. The timbre of his voice is very consistent. It's very ringing. If you read contemporary accounts of his singing, a lot of people will point out that, you know, he maybe wasn't as loud as you might think he is in his recordings, but the quality of his voice, those overtones really cut through an orchestra in a really impressive way, even if he's not always blasting like a Wagnerian tenor might. And you can hear it in this recording. And again, you know, a lot of people, he's one of those singers where a lot of people who heard him live will say, recordings can't really capture how gorgeous his voice was, how effective his use of pianissimi were, you know, and things like that. But when you hear him, it's such a warm hug type of voice. And this is one of the great examples of that in the Christmas repertoire, at least. Is the rare kind of singer where his technique matches how good his natural voice is. The more I listen to this, you know, over and over again, granted, I am not a tenor. I must defer to my tenor colleagues in terms of, you know, the breakdown of exactly why he's so good. But from my maybe less educated standpoint, there is no flaw that I can detect in his technique. It is perfectly even. The vibrato, the spin on his voice sounds so natural. He's one of those tenors where it doesn't sound like they're trying, which is kind of a rare thing for tenors. The biggest example I can think of is Pavarotti. But like, you know, there is not really the same sense, even in Pavarotti, of like the tone is always so controlled and so gorgeous, but still maintaining that sort of sense that the voice can still do more than even what you're hearing. And what you're hearing is extraordinary. To me, it almost sounds like, you know, you're hearing 80% of what the voice can do. And it's almost like a horror movie, you know, where like you never see the monster, and the movie gets less scary once the monster is actually seen, because what you're imagining in your mind is always going to be scarier. It's that same sort of quality that Jussi Björling has with his voice, where you are imagining that the voice is capable of even more than what he is actually doing, even though what he is doing is extraordinary. And I that could just be a personally very subjective experience that I am having with it. But I think that there is something there in terms of, the amount of control and the amount of knowing when to give that dramatic moment just what it needs and being able to pull back from that moment just the right way is such an important part of creating an exciting performance where and it's a great way to sort of create a legendary performance because everyone, talks about it later for decades and decades. Jussi Björling still has a massive fan base, at least in Sweden and elsewhere as well, where he's kind of worshipped as one of the great singers of the 20th century and for good reason. Now, in terms of him as a performer, I've seen some videos of him, not the most dynamic actor, let's say, but you can really see, if you see some of the videos, how he produced such an incredible yet controlled sound. He always has a very distinct posture. He's got a very straight back. His head is always a little back, in order to help create the sound move up without any obstructions. I think he's sort of the gold standard where if you were to put him in like an MRI machine, voice teachers would be like, do that. And you'd have a good sense of how to sing properly, at least in the tenor range. Now, I think that this is a really exciting recording of O Holy Night. And I can't let you go without that big money note, which always happens where they jump up even farther than you thought was possible. And I think that really comes off well here because of that quality I was talking about earlier, where Björling always feels like, even though he's the most gorgeous singer you've ever heard, he could still be doing more. And he gives you a taste of that, going even farther beyond what you thought possible at the end of this piece. It's a really great Christmas classic. And you know what? I think I might add it to my Christmas listening every single year from now on. Once again, Jussi Björling singing O Holy Night.
Hey, OBS listeners, Ashley here. Happy holidays, happy winter if you're on our side of the globe. Listen, I've brought some interesting pieces to these discussions before, but this might be one of my absolute favorites. So in this year of 2024, it is imperative that we celebrate together as a family the 10-year anniversary of the 2014 Christmas in Vienna Holiday Pops concert with the Zvolstig Quartet and the ORF Radio Orchestra. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, welcome to the best 1 minute and 45 seconds of your life. I'm talking about what? The operatic version of Wham's Last Christmas. Now, if you are still winning in the game that is Whamageddon, stay with me. I do not think this counts. I think it has to be George Michael for you to lose. So I would avoid like a Michael's and a Home Depot from now until the holiday is over. Okay, now listen, guys, this clip has everything. It has international opera stars, the ultimate Pops orchestral arrangement, a top-tier orchestra, a banging chorus. Wham! Are you not entertained? What more do you want? It is seriously one of my most giggle-worthy holiday tunes. It is so silly, but if you listen to the voices, they're actually incredible. Let's talk about who we're working with here. First, we have Russian tenor Dmitry Korchak. He placed in the 2004 Operalia competition. He sang Orfei here in Chicago at Lyric in 2017, and he's playing Duke in Rigoletto where next year? La Scala. Next, we move on to the diva, Russian soprano Natalia Ushakova. Girlfriend has been singing all over the place since the late 90s. The Met, La Scala, Hamburg, Stuttgart, WNO, Mariinsky. Next year, she's doing Tosca with Buenabaden. This is a voice. Next, we have my buddy in the ascot, the man himself, Austrian baritone Sebastian Hupman. He started his career with the Mozart Boys Choir in Vienna, and he has sung all over Europe, not so much in the US. He's definitely more Europe performance based. And then finally, my angel, my sweet baby Bulgarian angel, Mezzo Veselina Kazarova. She is so legit, y'all. She joined the Zurich Opera Ensemble in 1989, and she has 30 years of recordings. There's so much out there, and she is this like beefy, warm, bolognese, thick mezzo voice. It's absolutely stunning. She's collaborated with Kent Nagano. She wrote a book in 2012 about singing, and then just this year, she began teaching voice at Seoul National University. So I give them to you in this order because that is the order you're going to hear them in the clip. This pop orchestration, oh my gosh, it is chef's kiss. It is light, it is delicate, it is airy, it is fun. And when we get to, the mezzo, for example, doing the second half of the first verse, well, you'll know. You will know. And honestly, Korchak's once bitten, twice shy. I don't know why we haven't actually made this an aria for him. He sings it really beautifully, and it is bomb. Okay, so special shout out to the chorus. They display this incredible amount of dedication. In the same way that I unironically love the musical genre of yacht rock, I unironically love this recording, both the audio and the video. I love how it sounds and looks as if they're taking themselves really seriously, but they're also kind of bopping along and smiling with each other, singing in what for each of them is their second, third, fourth, or fifth language. And the thing is, you can't tell if they're doing it completely seriously or if they're just like that committed to the bit. And that ambiguity is only one of the things that makes this absolutely perfect. So the fellas, they gave you these broken out clips and this lovely analysis, but this holiday chestnut, she deserves to be played uninterrupted in her entirety. The whole concert is actually available on YouTube. It's really great. You can look up 2014 Christmas in Vienna. It's a great stream as you make your cookies and drink your cocoa, or if you're me, whiskey. But for now, let us say happy 10 years, happy 10th anniversary to this absolute gem, Wham's Last Christmas.
I gave you my heart, but the very next day you gave it away. This year, to save me from tears, I gave it to someone special. Yes, Christmas, he gave it me heart, but the very next day I gave it away. This year, to save me from tears, I gave it to someone special. He's keeping this house, but you still catch his eye. Tell me, Betty, do you recognize him? Really, it doesn't so nicely. Last Christmas, I gave you my
Good Call on Opera Box Score.
Good call, bad call, that's how we end the show. And I just want to say my good call is once again all of our listeners for joining us during your holiday season. Hopefully we made your holiday merry and bright. And if we didn't, there's always next year. That's it for this week's edition of America's Talk Radio show about opera. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Get your voice heard and find links to the stuff we've talked about at our website, operaboxscore.com. And that's also where you can put your money where our mouths are. Give back to the OBS using the Support the Team tab. Your announcer is Norm Waddell, your creative consultant is Oliver Camacho, and your audio editor is me, myself, and I. The executive producer of the OBS is George Cedarquist. For co-hosts Matt Cummings and Ashley Hardgrave, I'm Weston Williams, asking you to continue the conversation about opera while your best friend tells your wife to say it's carol singers. We're back next week with the OBS Year in Review, plus you get more opera headlines, more hot takes, and more bells on bobtails. Join us.